Right now, you're wearing clothes. You put them on this morning without thinking, grabbed whatever was closest, or maybe picked something out with a little intention, and then moved on with your day. It took you maybe 2 minutes. It felt like nothing. But that 2-minute ritual connects you to a decision that changed the entire trajectory of the human species. Here's what most people never stop to consider. For the first 200,000 years of Homo sapiens existing on this planet, nobody wore a single piece of clothing. Not a thread, not a hide, not a leaf strategically placed. Your ancestors, people with your exact brain, your exact capacity for language and love and abstract thought, walked this earth completely bare. And they were fine. Better than fine, actually. They were thriving. So at some point, something changed. Not just the climate, not just the geography. Something changed in the way humans understood themselves, the way they looked at their own bodies and decided, for the first time in the history of life on Earth, that a body wasn't enough. And the moment that happened, the exact moment, preserved in evidence so strange and specific, it almost feels like a message left for us, is something science has only recently figured out. So here's the question that's going to drive the next few minutes. When did humans first decide to get dressed?
Here's what you probably assume. Clothing started when humans moved into cold climates. Ice age hits, temperatures drop, people grab animal skins to survive. Simple, logical. The kind of explanation that feels so obvious, you never question it. That assumption is wrong. And the way it's wrong is more interesting than the assumption itself. Most people, if pressed, would guess clothing showed up somewhere around 20,000 to 30,000 years ago. That's the era most of us associate with early human culture. Tools, art, ritual, and clothing. In 2011, a molecular anthropologist named David Reed quietly demolished that assumption. Reed wasn't digging up ancient textiles. He was studying lice. Specifically, he was studying the genetic divergence between head lice and body lice. Here's why that matters. Head lice live in hair. Body lice live in clothing. They are the same species, split into two populations. And the only thing that could have caused that split is the invention of clothing. The moment humans started wearing clothes, body lice had a new habitat. They diverged. They evolved separately. And because evolution works on a measurable clock, Reed could calculate exactly when that split happened. The answer? Approximately 170,000 years ago. Not 30,000, not 50,000. 170,000 years ago, humans were already wearing enough clothing, consistently enough, for an entirely new subspecies of parasite to evolve and specialize on it. Most people don't know that. And once you do, you can't unknow it.
So now you're thinking, okay, 170,000 years ago, somewhere cold, humans started draping animal skins over themselves. Still fits the cold climate survival story, right? Except for one problem. 170,000 years ago, the region where the genetic evidence points, sub-Saharan Africa, was not cold. It was not experiencing an ice age. In fact, large parts of Africa during the Middle Stone Age were experiencing periods of intense warmth. In 2021, archaeologist Francesco de Errico published findings from Contrabandier's cave in Morocco, dated to approximately 120,000 years ago. Inside that cave, his team found something that shouldn't fit the survival narrative: 62 bones from at least 12 different carnivore species, foxes, jackals, wildcats, all processed in a very specific way. The bones showed cut marks concentrated not on the areas with the most meat, but precisely at the points where you would skin an animal to preserve the pelt. These weren't people eating carnivores for food. The meat yield from a fox is almost nothing. These were people skinning predators for their fur, carefully, deliberately, with technique. At 120,000 years ago, in a climate that didn't require it for survival. At some point, clothing
Clothing stopped being about survival and became something else entirely. It became a way to shape how other people saw you. Anthropologists call this the emergence of the social self. The moment humans began deliberately altering their appearance through ornaments, pigments, and clothing, not because the environment demanded it, but because other people existed.
Think about what that means. Before permanent shelters, before agriculture, before written language by roughly 160,000 years, humans were already asking, how do I want to present myself to others? That is not a survival behavior, but it's also not just vanity. It's something more structural. The moment you start managing how you appear to other people, you are no longer simply living in a social group. You are performing for one. By approximately 40,000 years ago, humans in Northern Europe were no longer just draping animal skins over themselves. They were constructing multi-layered, fitted garments, pieces that required needles. Archaeologists have found bone needles dating to 45,000 years ago at Denisova Cave in Siberia. These needles are 7 to 8 centimeters long, polished smooth from use, with eyes so finely drilled that researchers initially assumed they were modern contamination. They weren't. At least 2 different human species, possibly 3, if Neanderthals are included, were independently developing the technology to construct fitted clothing within the same 50,000-year window. Neanderthal sites across Europe show systematic use of large mammal hides and eagle talons worn as ornaments as far back as 130,000 years ago, documented by João Zilao in a 2010 paper that genuinely shocked the field. Multiple species of humans, all dressing themselves, all decorating themselves, all competing, not just for food or territory, but for status, recognition, and social position, which means clothing wasn't just a personal expression, it was becoming a currency.
The average person today owns 148 pieces of clothing. Studies from the University of Warwick show that 82% of purchases in the fast fashion industry are driven not by need, not by cold, not by wear, not by function, but by identity signaling, by the same impulse that drove a human being 100,000 years ago to crush ochre into a shell and press it against their skin before walking out of a cave. You get dressed every morning for the same reason a human being did it 120,000 years ago in a warm climate where they didn't need to. Not for warmth, not for protection, to tell the world and yourself something about who you are. And this morning, you opened a drawer, looked at what was inside, and made a choice. Every human who ever lived has made that choice. Every single one. That thing you did this morning, that 2-minute decision you made half asleep without thinking, is the same gesture that connects you to 164,000 years of human beings trying to answer the same wordless question. Who am I, and how do I show that to the world? What those early humans had, that you don't, is this. Every piece of clothing they made themselves. Every choice was slow, deliberate, and entirely their own. The distance between who they were and what they wore was 0. Somewhere along the way, that distance grew, and most people spend their whole lives trying to close it again without knowing that's what they're doing. You've been getting dressed your whole life. Today is the first day you know why.